Okay. Well, let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and start this off. If anybody happens to know someone else trying to sneak into the room, let me know and I'll let them slide in. I first want to thank Julia Lowe for showing up tonight. As you know, she is from Columbus, Indiana, and she is the executive chair of the Hoosier Sierra Club. She is also active with the local Sierra Club group, Winding Waters, as well as the Democratic Party, local Democratic Party. She's going to give us a background on Senate Bill 389 and the anti-wetlands bill, followed by discussion. So we got more people trying to get in.
Okay.
So, Julia, it's all yours. Or Julia.
All right. Well, thanks for the invitation, first of all. And it's really timely because there's new news on the bill. But let me just start with a little background of Sierra Club, if you don't mind. As Steve said, I'm the executive committee chair of the Sierra Club Hoosier chapter. So that's the state chapter. And then around the state, there are groups, local groups, and there are about 5 of them. And the one down here around Columbus area and the surrounding counties is the Winding Waters group. So you all that are listening to this, you are either members, if you're Sierra Club members, or you're friends of the Winding Waters group, and you're invited to any kind of activity we plan. You're welcome to come, and we pretty soon, since things are getting better with the pandemic and we're all getting vaccinated, we will be meeting at the library again after probably July is when we're going to reconvene in the Red Room. The Sierra Club has reserved the Red Room for the first Wednesday of every month, and we, not last year, but before, we've always presented a program, like having someone come and share their awesome vacation that they took, climbing mountains or hiking the Appalachian Trail. And hey, Steve, can I ask, I am now seeing just me and nobody else. Is there a view that I can change? Gallery view? Yes, okay, because that was really distracting, my big face, and couldn't see you guys. So you're welcome to join us at the library. You don't need to be a Sierra Club member. And Eric Riddle is actually the co-chair of the program committee. And so we're getting all kinds of really neat programs. And there's one coming up in April, and it's Zoom, so we won't be at the library. But we are partnering with the Sycamore Land Trust and Indiana Phenology. And I don't know if you all have heard of Nature's Notebook or Backyard Observers. You can use your smartphone and you can join a citizen science group and follow your backyard or this project that we're starting with Sycamore Land Trust at Touch the Earth. We're going to be trained on that on April 7th by Indiana Phenology. They're going to give a webinar that's free to us and for all of our community, for anyone that wants to join the citizen science project. So we're going to follow certain native plant species and pollinators and birds. If you're a birder, we really want you to help with this project. And then some like toads and the spring peepers. And we're going to follow them for 2 years just by going out to Touch the Earth and taking your smartphone and bringing up the app, which they're making specially for our site at Touch the Earth. So it's a new partnership with the 3 groups, and it's a community project to get everybody out and observe nature and actually track it. That helps with climate change and, watching the species and what they're doing. And so we're really excited about that. So you can find that with the library information, and it'll just be a Zoom webinar. So that's one of the things we're doing.
Hey, Julie.
Yes.
This is Eric. For those who don't know, could you share how to get to Touch the Earth? It's a lot closer than some people might imagine.
Thank you. Yeah, so Touch the Earth is a property that is on the west side of Columbus on Country Club Road. On the one side is the, well, if you guys know where Country Club Road is, right before you head out of town of Columbus, yeah, it's very close, and it's a really nice property. You can walk around and hike and look at the birds. They have a pond. They just did a prescribed burn, so if you've never seen that, you should go out and see what a prescribed burn looks like. And that's to get rid of invasives and the woody plants, because they do want to have some meadows, not all forest. So,
They have
so
a nice,
please,
pardon me, they have a nice new park, place to park. And it's,
yes, they
when you
do.
get there, you see, it's obvious that you have arrived. They've got a nice big sign now. So it's,
They do. Yeah, they did some work there. And that's in fact how this all started. I went out there for the ribbon cutting ceremony, and we're all standing around. And then the next day, our outings committee, the hiking committee with the Sierra Club met, and we were like, what are we going to do with this pandemic still going on? And how can we get people outdoors? So that is how all this came together. So
the trails are in good shape now too.
the what are?
The trails are in nice shape. They've been
Yes,
recently.
yes, they are. It's a nice place. So, okay, well, we can start talking about the wetlands bill. I just want you guys to know you're invited to do any Sierra Club activity that we plan. We plan things so people will come. So please do. Okay, so the anti-wetlands bill is what we're calling it now. It's Senate Bill 389. And I don't know if you all have been following it, but it did come out of the Senate. It passed the Senate, I think in March. I've got so many notes now, I don't know. It came out sometime at the first part of the session, and then it got passed over to the House. And we thought that it might die in the House. We were hoping, but you know, these days you can't hold your breath, because yeah, it didn't work out that way. So there have been so many people, just citizens, that have stood up against this bill since it was first introduced. There's been a lot of people from Indiana really upset about this, and I've heard from other environmental groups, and I've actually heard from Senator Walker that they've never heard so many people talk about a bill than this one. So there are a lot of people from Indiana upset, and even the governor came out in the beginning when this was still in the Senate and is against it. And the IDEM, Environmental Management, they have spoken out against it. DNR spoke out against it when it was still in the Senate. So, but it did just sail right through the Senate, and they passed it, and it went to the House. And then just last Monday, it went to the Environmental Affairs Committee, and that's Representative Gutwein chairs that committee. And it was heard Monday morning at 10:30, so I watched it. And they didn't vote on it, but they heard all the testimony, and it took 2 hours. And the only one that stood up and supported it was Senator Chris Garten, and he is the one that authored it. And I don't know, did anybody watch it or hear anything about his testimony? All right, well, I'm going to try not to be offensive, but he really offended me. He stood up and he basically he got to the podium and he started screaming. He started screaming at everyone. His voice was raised. He was mad. He was gesticulating. He was talking about how he and the other authors of the bill have been threatened by the community. And he talked about his legislative assistant that's 21 years old and she's scared to death because she's getting threatened. And then he went on to tell a story about IDEM, someone that worked for IDEM, and this farmer, supposedly this farmer that came to Senator Chris Garden is what started this whole thing, that Senator Chris Garden was trying to help out his constituent that's a farmer. And he said, you know how the farmer has a big long driveway, a gravel driveway, and he said he was at his house back on his farm, and this employee of IDEM came tearing up his driveway, dust flying everywhere, gravel flying everywhere, drove right past the farmer and straight back into the farmer's fields. And so the farmer got on his golf cart and went back to where this guy parked and was out of his car. And he said, you know, can I help you? What are you doing? And the IDEM representative supposedly said, I have more right to be on this land than you do, your land than you do. So that's how it all started out. And so he went on screaming and saying that people are calling them, the ones that authored the bill, a bunch of greedy bastards. And everyone just kind of thought, well, if the shoe fits. So it just, you know, they gave him the Senator Gutwein, the chair, gave him a lot of time to speak. So he yelled for about 15 minutes, and then they let people come up to present testimony. And that's when it got really good. I was really proud of people from Indiana that came, you know, in the middle of a pandemic and stood up because they cared so much. And the chair did let everyone that registered for testimony, he let them all speak, and it took over 2 hours. But all the environmental groups like Hoosier Environmental Council, Dr. Ender Frank stood up and gave really good testimony. And I won't be able to name them all, but anyone, you know, you can think of that's environmental that cares, they were there to speak. Indiana Forest Alliance, Jeff Stant spoke, Shannon Anderson from Earth Charter. She read a really nice letter that was written by students that she works with that were 9 years old. And they were much more professional than Senator Chris Garden in their letter. And then the Sierra Club Hoosier chapter, we are so excited about this. We just hired our very first legislative coordinator. So he's actually staff, and that's his job. And we don't have to just rely on volunteers anymore, which volunteers are fine, but we all have, you know, day jobs, and we're moms and dads, and we don't have as much time as someone that's hired to do this. So he stood up and gave testimony, and he did a really good job. In fact, something he said in the closing, Senator Garden picked out to pick on him. And I thought, well, good, he made an impression on him. So let's talk about the bill. So they listened to all the testimony. It was great. And it's recorded if anybody wants to see it. And then the chair said, all right, we're not going to vote today. But we're going to give you the week, the Environmental Affairs Committee. We're going to give you the week to look over the testimony and then look at 2 amendments. There are Amendment 11 and Amendment 12, so that he was giving them a week to look it over. So just today, a couple of hours ago, Dr. Indra Frank from Hoosier Environmental Council sent an email to Bowden Quinn saying, and I'll read it since it's new, and it's good news. Let me find it. Okay. It says, hello, wetland friends. I'm writing with news and with a request. But first, the news. We were told today that House Environmental Affairs Committee is delaying its vote on the wetlands bill until April 5th. So 2 weeks. Well, not this Monday, but next. and that another amendment is in the works, which is good because the first amendment 11 was just as bad as the bill. It repeals all protections from Indiana wetlands. And you probably heard the term, they use the Indiana isolated wetlands. And so wetlands come and go during the seasons. And so there are 3 classifications of wetlands, and some, I'm gonna just stop because it gets really confusing. So there are 3 classifications, and this bill would stop protections of all of them. And Indiana has actually protected their wetlands. For 2 decades, we have done a really good job at protecting them. Let me read something else so I can give you lots of information succinctly. Senate Bill 389 would eliminate all protections of state wetlands in Indiana. IDEM, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, testified that Indiana has already lost 85% of its original wetlands. And of the wetlands remaining, 80 to 90% are state protected. Are state protected wetlands, which are in jeopardy if this bill passes. The other 10 to 20% are federally protected, and that goes back to the classifications. They only protect some. So only 10 to 20% are federally protected. Wetlands are vital to healthy ecosystem and water resources. They provide water purification and critical wildlife habitat. Wetlands act as giant sponges in the landscape, absorbing 1 to 1.5 million gallons of water per acre, which reduces flooding, which you all know we are getting more and more of with climate change. So this law, this bill would repeal the law that requires a permit from IDEM for any kind of wetland activity in a state regulated wetland. So activity means like building. If the someone wants to build an industry or a neighborhood and there's a wetland on it, it needs to be mitigated, and it costs people money to mitigate it. They would have to build another wetland somewhere else. And so the Home Builders Association, a giant lobby group, they're the ones trying to push this bill through. And the senators that authored it, Chris Garden, Senator Mesmer, and Senator Rogers, all have ties to the Home Builders Association. They are, what do you call them? Their business, these senators, their business is in home building, and you know, that's how they make their money. That's their day job. So it smells a little bad. So let's see, what else can I tell you? So the fact that they are holding off the vote and they're writing a new amendment is the best news we could have gotten, because Amendment 11 was just as bad as the bill. It would repeal all protections. So IDEM, DNR, and the rest of the environmental groups did not support Amendment 11. And then Amendment 12, which I cannot get my hands on. I haven't been able to read it. I've looked and I don't see the amendment. But there, for weeks now, Hoosier Environmental Council has been going to the State House and talking to senators and representatives, and they thought they had a deal that they would not pass this bill as it stood. And then they got the rug pulled out from under their feet last week and said, nope, it's going to the Environmental Affairs Committee and it's going to be heard. So they, you know, got their promises, they were broken. So people did not stand by their word. So I'm not sure what all happened, but I just know that Andrew Frank was really devastated and said they're going back on everything they said. So the fact that they are now holding the vote for another week and coming up with another amendment is very good news. So at this time, you think we could have a discussion with all of us, and people can ask questions if you want, or if you have heard anything, you know, let us know that too.
Julia, I understand that under Obama, the Clean Water Act, it was interpreted and it covered like 60% of all of our wetlands. And then the Trump administration last year changed the rules or changed the interpretations. And so that reduced it down to like about 20% or so of our wetlands are now protected by federal law. As long as they touch water like a river or a lake or a stream, then it's okay. They're still protected. But if they're like whatever the phrase was used earlier, if they're somehow dried up, somehow separated from the source of water, then they don't fall under the Clean Water Act anymore. And
Right, isolated is what they're calling them, and that's all over Indiana, right? I mean, that's what wetlands are. You know, in the spring they're full, and as the year goes on, they dry up. But you can see it in farmers' fields. The same places flood every year. Well, when they're not flooding, they're actually wetlands that people tried to farm or build houses in. So yes, they did. And what the Farm Bureau and Home Builders Association complain about, and what they've got this phrase going around, is that we don't need to protect mud puddles. They're just protecting mud puddles in a field, and they're not mud puddles. You know, they support wildlife. They help mitigate flooding, and they filter our groundwater. And lots of cities still use groundwater for their main source of water. And that's what the senators that wrote this bill and the people that are supporting it say. We don't need wetlands to purify our water. That's crazy. Everybody has city water, and it's like, where do you think water comes from? You know, so.
yeah, it comes from the city. Everyone knows that. About the wetlands, I think that, I mean, I looked into it because I was going to be sitting here talking to you, so I looked into it earlier. And the wetlands, like you said, they do filter. They catch sediment, you know, and then as they fill up and they capture all this water, it then will seep down into the water table, and that's how you can refresh. If you had a parking lot there, that water is not staying. It's going to go straight into the closest stream and head downstream and flood out somebody's house, or you're going to wind up having wet basements or whatever it's going to be, because you're in an area that's normally will hold water. You know, that's how it's built. It's built to hold water. Now you're going to put a house there or a development there.
Exactly. And so people did show up to provide testimony on that. One person, and I cannot remember who she was, but she was amazing. She somehow works in a capacity for the state, but it's regarding wetlands and flooding. And she said that she bought a house in Indianapolis, and it was near the White River. And she said, so every time it rains, my whole neighborhood floods, because it was built on, you know, a wetland that they mitigated and supposedly took care of. And she said she has to send her son to the bus stop, the school bus stop in waders, because all this water's in the street. And we have a good system here in Columbus where our overflow, because of the Sierra Club before I got here. Hey, Dennis, tell us what you guys did, Winding Waters Group did with the sewer overflows. Do you remember that?
Yeah, back, when was it? 2005 or so, we got together, Fred Armstrong and some folks from utilities, Steve, what's his name that just got rehired? Steve Reeves.
Steve Reeves, yeah.
To look at our combined sewer overflow. Columbus is one of the many cities that in the downtown area combines its sanitary sewer with the gutters, the storm sewer in the streets, and it just used to flow into the river. And Becky and I have done this a couple of times. you didn't want to do it unless you had a strong stomach, but if you went down to Millrace Park and watched the sewer overflow going into the river right after a thunderstorm, it was pathetic. Just black water, smelly water with everything you can imagine in the sewer right there. So yeah, the Sierra Club pushed for that. It actually got done. It was an $11 million project, and they tore up lots of streets over on the east side of town.
Yeah.
Now we take all that water, put it in a giant lagoon south of town, and it all runs through the sewage treatment plant before it goes back in the river.
Yeah, so Columbus is ahead of the game, and most cities, a lot of cities don't have that. So all that nasty water, that's why this woman was complaining her kid has to go to the bus stop in Waders because that is nasty water. It's, you know, a health hazard. So that's what wetlands prevent. They filter that water and they keep it from flooding to begin with. So her point was, why would they ever let someone, a home builders, why would they let them build a neighborhood in a flood zone? And there's a reason why you shouldn't do that. And there's a reason why it's happening, because this was a floodplain. So that
Right.
was,
Julie, I've heard this Garton story before, the hearsay about a farmer, the dusty guy coming down the driveway. I've heard this before, and we allow this garden guy to repeat this story over and over again unchallenged. And I really think somebody ought to find out who is it DNR or IDEM?
IDEM. Mm-hmm.
I think someone really ought to find that guy and get his side of the story, because the way Garton tells it, I've never met a government employee that abusive. I just don't believe the source.
I agree. Several people, probably 3 people, including IDEM, gave testimony and said, let's not change the law because of an employee problem. Let's just deal with that employee and leave the law to protect the wetlands. So
well, we're
he's
saying
foolish.
we're
What?
saying we have an employee problem because Garton says so. Some citizen said so. And I just can't believe a conversation that goes like out of the blue, I have more right to be here than you do.
No,
A whole lot of discussion must have been left out.
I would say so.
And
It was
basically, the story might not even be true, is what I think Dennis is trying to say. I could be pure hyperbole.
But
But
the whole thing could be made up, yeah.
it
says
was
Like Fox News.
Yeah, I have a question. Before I have my question, Steve was just pointing out, and I remembered when Milo Smith was in office, he used to repeat this story all the time that, you know, if you have a tree on your property that falls over, you're not allowed to clean it. You're not allowed to clean that up. And he would repeat that story as kind of an anti-environment, you know, those bureaucrats. Why, if you have a tree fall down on your farm, you're not even allowed to clean it up. And he would say that, but that's not my question. My question is this a homegrown bill, or is this an ALEC bill that's being filed in multiple states?
Oh, no, it's not. I don't believe it's an ALEC bill. This just really, the source is the Home Builders Association, and they say they're losing thousands of dollars, and that tens of thousands of dollars, and that it gets passed on to the home buyer, and that Indiana has a home crisis, not enough homes, affordable homes, and that these wetlands are standing in the way of prosperity, you know, for home buyers. And, you know, they act like it has nothing to do with the fact that they are the ones that want the money. They make it smell better by saying that there's a crisis for homes, and that the home buyers shouldn't have to, you know, be the one to pay for all this.
And there's something about, they were claiming that since Trump changed the law, I guess we have the law that was passed here in Indiana, what, in 2003 or 2004 was a pretty good law. I don't remember what it was called now, but the wetlands bill. And that after Trump changed the law last year, his administration did, I should say, we were losing out because those same laws weren't affecting other states like they're affecting ours, and so they're trying to equal out the playing field for our builders and make them less expensive, so we can compete with homeowners and stuff who want to come to the state.
Right, that's one thing Chris Garden said over and over, that there are 42 states in our country that don't have this law. He said it over and over again, that why can't we just be like the other states? They don't need these laws, why do we? Well, this woman that stood up, then I apologize, I don't know her name and where she was from. She said other states aren't like Indiana. Out west, they don't have water like we do. They don't have wetlands. Indiana is unique, and we have all these wetlands and we should protect them. And that's why for 2 decades, we have enjoyed these protections. Let's leave them, leave this law in place.
Julia, the Indiana Farm Bureau, you mentioned them being for this bill.
Yes.
So the fact that Indiana is better off on wetlands than a lot of other states, does that mean that farmers have been forced not to plant bottomland where it would flood every 5 years and they'd lose one crop? It was better, so it was redesignated as wetland. Is that part of this beyond the homeowner association?
I don't think that farmers, I guess I don't know that. I don't think that farmers in general support this bill.
So why would the Farm Bureau be for this bill if that's true?
Yeah.
Well, what I read was that the farmers are aggravated with the bill to some degree because it affects the way they control their land. It's a land rights issue. It's a private property issue. See, most of the property this covers is private property.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's now I don't know if it's truly a farmer issue or if it's mega farmers so,
Yeah.
that are upset about it.
I know that that's how this started, right? This farmer, and it was all about a tile. He had a broken field tile, and so he went to repair it. And I may not be getting all this right, but he wanted to repair it, and then that's when they said, "Oh, this is a wetland. You can't repair this." So somehow that happened. So yes, some farmers, and it is about, this is my land, I should be able to do what I want. So, but that is really not what's,
The force.
I mean, I think,
the builders.
yes, it's this one constituent that they could, use as the example of why, they're acting like so many people are upset about this and want these restrictions or these protections removed, when that is not the case.
And the current law is that a builder, in order to build in a wetland, he's got to build it up, but he's also going to go over and create another wetland to take the place of.
Yes,
You said earlier on.
that's the very short answer. And yeah, and I don't know much about that. I do know that this Amendment 12 addresses that, and it would have IDEM mitigate instead of the builders, but they would pay IDEM to mitigate it. So they still have to pay, but they wouldn't have to do it themselves. And I know that Indra Frank from Hoosier Environmental Council told us that they were going to support Amendment 12 because it was the lesser of the evils of this bill getting passed without that amendment. So, I mean, Sierra Club, when we heard about Amendment 12, we thought, no way, this, we can't support that. But we're not over at the State House as much as Hoosier Environmental Council and talking to all these people they talk to. And so we definitely go with what Indra Frank suggests, because, you know, she just said that this is better than it passing without it. But now, hopefully, this will all get better, and there will be a new amendment that we can live with, or because I don't know how this is going to turn out. I just, you know, you would hope that the bill would die, but with the supermajority this year, I don't think it's going to die. I don't think there's, you know, we can all just keep voicing our opinions. And has anyone talked to Representative Lauer? Has anyone asked him, and has anyone gotten an answer? Because I have not. I
asked him to vote against it, didn't get a reply.
Yeah, no reply.
have not had a reply, and I've called and I talked to his legislative assistant, and I said, you know, I've been writing him for months now, and I've called, and I said, he normally answers. I said, he's always been respectful and has replied. And I said, so I just would like, you know, to know how he stands on this. So this person that answered the phone, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. He said, well, how about we arrange a call? First of all, he said, well, tell me what you don't like about the wetlands bill. So I spoke for like at least 5 minutes, and I think he was really listening. And he said, well, how about I arrange a call with you and Representative Lauer? And I said, that would be great. I never heard another thing. I didn't get an email, you know. I think he was just paying lip service and knew that I was upset because I wasn't getting an answer, but he didn't answer.
Do we
Go ahead.
know how the rest of our legislators are doing? I know Eric Koch is actually a co-sponsor. So
Yes,
that's
he
not,
is.
but besides Lauer, like we have Greg Walker. I know Greg Walker voted for Italian's amendment, but I don't know if it died, but I don't know what that means.
He voted for what?
He voted for the amendment that Italian tried to introduce in the Senate that would refer it to some sort of committee to review. And
He voted no. When it was in the Senate, he was one of the few that voted no. So I thanked him, and he said, see, I can be reasonable sometimes. And I said, you can be reasonable a lot. So, and then third house, the first, maybe it was the second, third house, I had sent my question in to Ryan Lauer because it had gone to the House, this bill, the wetlands bill. And I was so excited that I was going to be able to ask Ryan Lauer. And then I don't know how it happened, but Cindy, because I put in the email, it was very specific for Ryan Lauer. She asked Senator Walker. So at least it got brought up, and Senator Walker said some really good things. So it did get talked about, but then there was out of time, and Lauer didn't respond. So it seemed contrived that he didn't answer or get asked. So not by Cindy, but I don't know.
so what about, I mean, I even hate to read the guy's name. What about Jim Lucas? Those are the guys that are representing their area. Have you heard anything about their support or not support?
No, I haven't heard. I would say he would probably support it. And that's why I really wanted to talk to Ryan Lauer, because I think he can be reasonable, and I would hope that he wouldn't just jump on the super majority bandwagon, but it's really easy to do for them. So I would imagine Lucas would too.
Has Holcomb come out lately and spoken about his position? I know he acted like he completely opposed the bill. He was saying if it affects flooding downstream, if it, you know, we got to be concerned about purification of our water and, you know, the wildlife habitat for anglers and hunters. You know, he hit all the high spots.
Yep, he did come out, but in the end, it doesn't matter if you have a super majority. So they'll just, you know, he'll veto it, and then they'll pass it. So
You think he would veto it?
I think he would, because IDEM and DNR, when it was in the Senate, they came out and spoke against it. And I can tell you more about when it was in the Senate. Senator Mesmer was one of the authors, and he was the chair of the committee that it was heard in the Senate. And when that happens, you're supposed to, I don't know if recuse is the word, but you're not supposed to be the chair of your own work. And he didn't care. He went ahead and chaired the session, and they let the people that were for the bill stand up and speak. And I guess they spoke for, I think they let, trying to remember how, because there was a number, it was either 6 or 9 people, probably 6 different groups or people got to stand up for the bill, and they only let 3 speak against it. And that was IDEM and DNR and Indra Frank. And then they stopped the set. They wouldn't let, there were lots of people there to give testimony against it, but they wouldn't let them speak. So
Dennis has a question in here. Says, what does the drainage board think?
Sorry, that's me. It's me because Dennis has to deal with the drainage board with all the farmers on it down where he lives. And they're very concerned about how the slough works. And they're very upset when somebody's driveway is in the way or whatever they think is in the way. And they're very concerned about it all the time.
well, tell us, Dennis, what do you think
Well,
farmers and the drainage board?
Well, I don't know. There are strong lobbies of farmers and home people, and I'm sort of a naturalist, as you know. And how do you say this? If you would have dipped into Indiana after the glaciers melted 10,000 years ago, you'd see Indiana as a swamp, covered with beavers and dams, and Kankakee Swamp was the last of it way up north. But when white folks came in 1820, it was war on the wetlands. It was get those beaver dams out, create these sloughs to carry the water to the nearest waterway. Politically, we created drainage boards whose job it was to dry out this farmland, because everybody knew if you could get the farmland dry, it was great farmland. But the point is that for 10,000 years, Indiana wildlife, the wildlife we have is wildlife that lives in wetlands. And, you know, wheat doesn't belong in Indiana. Corn doesn't belong in Indiana. Soybeans don't belong here. These pollinators that you folks are trying to sell is what really belongs in Indiana, along with the trees. So, yeah, just as wildlife preservation,
What would the drainage board think about this?
well, the drainage board wants the wetlands gone.
But they want the slough to stay there.
Well, somebody brought up my land as being a possible wetland, and oh my God, we got it. It can't possibly be a wetland. We got to drain that thing. So they don't like wetlands legislation. It gets in their way of draining the place.
But they don't like the thought that somebody might block the slough. And if you're going to build in that wetland, you're going to block that slough.
No, they're going to put concrete ditches and get the water away as fast as they can.
Well, then it's going to go in that farmer's field and somebody's house, then instead of in the slough. You're disrupting the slough then. Oh, well, whatever. Sorry.
Bill Mullins has a question on here, Julie. And this is probably one of the most important questions I have for you tonight before I read his question. You pronounce your name Julie, but it's spelled Julia. So
Isn't that weird?
it just threw me way off when I realized that contradiction. But I just went, okay, now back to the question. Could you please ask Julie to follow up on your point with the governor? Is there any value in reaching out to his office to seek his support for Amendment 12?
Well, that is a good question. And I would say don't ask at this point to support Amendment 12, just because they're working on another one. But if that is the only thing we have right now is Amendment 12. So there are people though that are better to reach out to than the governor, but it doesn't hurt to talk when things are as bad as they are with this bill. To make noise to the governor is always helpful. So yes, but I guess I would say hold off on saying support Amendment 12, and let's wait and see what this other amendment is, and we have a little bit of time. But I had somebody put in the chat at the top what Ender Frank has asked. She said that, let's see, what's it say? Well, it says if you represent an organization, she wants to know who has contacted any of their representatives. So if you email, I think we've got her email, she wants to know who any of us. So if you're just, a voter like me, then let her know who you've contacted. They want to show how many people have been contacting their legislators. So we have the list of the people that are on the Environmental Affairs Committee that are now considering this bill. So I don't think any of us are their constituents, but you can still write them, especially Gutwein, Chairman Gutwein. All these people that are listed here in the chat with their email addresses, those are the people that it would be very helpful for you to write and let them know of your concern, and that you think wetlands are important to Indiana, and we're not even talking about nature, right? We know better than to go on about the wildlife. We're talking about mitigating flooding and keeping our water filtered and clean. So, if you want to talk about the wildlife too, that's very important. It's talk about all of them, but let these people know how you feel, and the governor too while you're at it, and Representative Lowe, because he's the one, if this gets to the House for a vote, then start talking to him now, so he knows how you feel.
So I have a question. Can you encourage the governor to veto this bill? Period.
Well, there's no
Sounds to
period,
me-
because he would have vetoed it. That's what he said when it was in the Senate. But
Oh,
it doesn't stop there if there's a super majority, which Indiana has. The Republicans,
oh.
are overwhelming, and they could overturn his veto, and I'm sure they would. I mean, they're already trying to take his power away. And Ryan Lauer, I think, did he author that bill that's trying to, or did he just sign on to it, that wants to take the power away from the governor on closing down the state because of the pandemic? There is a bill moving that is trying to take his power away. And Senator Walker talked about this at Third House, and I was really glad that it came up. He explained, it was actually in the paper too. He explained that legislators don't get together quickly, and then they don't decide anything quickly. It takes them sometimes years to decide, and the governor has power to make decisions, timely decisions, in the time of an emergency. And so, and he is an elected official, and it is constitutionally correct what the governor is doing. And what this bill is trying to do is not constitutional. Well, I don't know if it goes that far, but what Senator Walker said was great, because without, he didn't try to make anybody look bad who wrote the bill or who's supporting the bill. He just went on about Indiana Constitution, and it was matter of fact and made a lot of sense. So, any other bills anybody's excited about or hates?
Well, I was just gonna kind of piggyback a little bit on this. the wetlands bill. How much do you think that it will affect all of this, that the EPA just reported that we are ranked #1 in toxic pollution in our water and in our air? I mean, with the wetlands being a purifier, I mean, that's going to play a big role in trying to maintain our groundwater, keeping it clean. And if we're #1 at the worst of that, do you
Yeah.
think that's going to play a part?
Well, that's a good point. We should start making some noise about that, because was that in the New York Times? I remember
I
hearing.
believe so.
Okay, so did everybody hear that? That we're the super polluter state, and now we're the most toxic state out of the 50 states. You know, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So when we do write our legislators, I'd put that link right in there and highlight the part about water. So good point. Can you send that link to everyone, that article around?
Yeah, I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why the wetlands are so important, because like what Dennis was saying about all the corn we raise, we put all this nitrogen on the soil, it washes out, but it's caught in those wetlands. They kind of, you know, screen it out some, and they keep us from, as it is, we're still one of like the #1 polluter in the nation of the water because of all the nitrogen put in the water. And then slightly askew of that, we then have all those coal power plants in southwestern Indiana and Evansville, where this is the most polluted air in the country. And you think of Indiana as being a Midwest state, we should be fine, right in the middle of nowhere. But all across the board, we are, you know, like the worst when it comes to pollution. And that's because of all the deregulation. We're just like a step behind Texas, I think.
Yeah. That's what Corey Ray, our new legislative coordinator, said. That was so great. And unlike what anybody else said, and this, he's like 26 or 27 years old, so I'm super impressed by him. But he stood up and talked about the Hoosiers and the Hoosier state, and that we want people to move to our state, and they're not going to bring their businesses here, and they're not going to come to our state if they don't have the outdoors to hunt and fish in, and if it's really expensive for industry to move here because of, you know, water infrastructure or whatever. He pointed out that you can deregulate, but at some point it comes back to bite you.
If you want, I can quickly share that screen, that link that Michelle just shared.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Close that sucker. we suck, man. We just suck. But anyway, that's it there. So if you copy that link of hers, you can read that later. I highly recommend it.
That would be highly effective, I would think, with communication, to put that link in there. Like, yeah, if Indiana's doing so great, and, you know, I don't think so.
Well, you look at at every vector you look at, you know, they're trying to do it with our public education. They're trying to give all of our tax dollars for public education to these parochial schools. And I went to a parochial school, but at the same, you know, these charter schools and private schools, and they're literally trying to do away with public education in Indiana. Then you talk about the clean water and the clean air. You know, we really go out of our way to do it wrong.
We're good at doing it wrong. Well, not us, but the people in charge right now. We have to get some more of you good people to run for office. Seriously, people need to run for office and start making the change. Now everybody's quiet.
I'm going to speak up now. But the one thing I want to go back to the very beginning, when you were just introducing us to, I think someone brought it up, I forget who it was, but they talked about Touch the Earth. I've never been out there. Actually, I didn't know it existed till you guys started talking. Where's that again? Because I wouldn't mind going out and checking that out and taking a hike out there.
Okay, yeah, and they just have a new property right across the highway. You remember the, what was it called? It was the outdoor science lab, I think is what it was
It's
called.
called Tangeman Woods, and
Yeah.
you actually park in the Harrison Township fire station parking lot.
So you go out 46 west.
Yeah, you take a right off of 46 going, I guess, north to get to Tangeman Woods there at the Harrison fire station. At that exact same spot on 46, you can take a left. And that left is Harrison, the Country Club Road.
Right. I just found it. Yeah.
Which runs on the west side of the golf course.
Right.
And
It's
then
the
you
White Oak
just go
Lake
in
area.
about a half mile. It's on the left.
It's the White Oak Lake area,
Right.
the west end of White Oak Lake.
Yeah, I Googled it here and I found it.
Dale,
Yeah.
you've spent a lot of time there, haven't you, Dale, at Touch the Earth?
Yeah, I was going to say Tangeman Woods has a half-mile trail and Touch the Earth has a 2-mile trail. But it's nice because it has several options. There's a smaller loop and a bigger loop at Touch the Earth.
Cool.
I go there a lot because it's one of the few trails in Bartholomew County that actually has some hilly spots to it. So you're going up and down, and part is open grasslands and part is in the woods. So it's really a nice variety. A day after it rains, it's very muddy. But other than that, and they cut a new trail. So on the muddiest days, you can avoid the worst part. I don't know how to describe it. On the south side, if you cut to the left, you avoid the worst mud. But on good days, it's wonderful.
If it's not raining tomorrow, I will check it out.
Yeah, and I bet the peepers are going now too.
They are. I was there Tuesday. Yes.
Yeah.
they are.
They're both owned or run by Sycamore Land Trust. And the Tangeman Woods, at Tangeman Woods, they're going to redo that parking lot also, just like they did at Touch the Earth. And they're going to increase the length of the trail. So
I
soon.
sent a
soon.
link to Touch the Earth in the chat there.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, we're lucky to have those places so close. So, I mean, it's different than the People Trail because you've got a creek running through and some little footbridges, and it's in the forest, and like Dale said, like grassland, and there's a pond. So it's a nice area. They do have problems with so many people wanting to go outdoors, which is great, but they just have a small parking lot. But Chris Fox is the land steward of Sycamore Land Trust, and he said they do that on purpose because they don't want it overused. They don't want 20 cars in the parking lot, at once. They want it to be, if the parking lot's full, then you need to find another place that day and come back another time, because you want it to be, you want your peace in the woods, peace and quiet. So I guess they're having a lot of problems in Bloomington. The peninsula, I guess it's just getting overrun and the trails are getting destroyed and people are parking their cars in other people's yards instead of saying, hey, it's full, I should go somewhere else today. They park on the sidewalk and go on in. So it's great people are getting out, but we need to be careful how we treat our resources.
Well,
Early in the spring, just for a warning, wear a hat, wear long sleeves, because it has the worst ticks that I've ever seen anywhere around here.
I agree. And they come early. Lisa
come early.
Weisner said that she's already picked a few off her pants, and I'm like, no, but they're really bad there. But you can buy, the stuff that you treat just your clothing and gear for ticks, and then you can buy, and I can't remember the name of the chemical, but I know that chemicals are bad, but so is the diseases you get from ticks. So yeah, I sprayed that stuff all over me.
No, encephalitis.
What
Yeah.
is it?
Encephalitis.
Oh, that and
Lyme disease.
Lyme disease.
Lyme
Yeah.
disease.
Yeah.
And Lyme
And
disease.
they do encephalitis too. They do both.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, Julie's- yeah, because I looked at your first name and saw there was an A there. I can no longer pronounce your name correctly.
Yeah, my email. Oh, I didn't even realize it says Julia there.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I usually change it to Julie. So sorry about that. My name is Julia. My mother named me Julia Bell.
All right. Yeah.
But I was never called Julia. My entire life I've been called Julie. So you guys can call me whatever you want.
Kind of like Jerome. He didn't realize he went his whole life named Jerome till he ran for office and found out it was spelled with an N. So it kind of messed him up. But anyway, the hour with Julie has come to an end here. I don't know if she has anything she wants to sign off with or any last questions she might take, but she did say to me when we were chatting before anybody else showed up that, it'd just be a blessing if the people that showed up today would email that small group of people and then send her a text and say, hey, Julie, I did it. So she would know that this little presentation had an effect. So I think it'd be just the kindness of us if we could all just send out those emails and then send her a text, say, Julie, spell your name wrong. We did it.
That'd be wonderful. And that would be wonderful if you could all do that. And put that link in there that Michelle shared. So, well, thank you all. Thank you for the invitation. And this has been great talking about it. So glad you all are interested.
Hey, Julie, the group
Yes.
of people you wanted us to email, then as soon as this cuts out, as soon as we're done Zooming, then it'll go away. So can you send it to us?
Copy it again real quick for you to copy and paste.
Oh, copy and paste it. Okay. Is it up at the top?
Well, actually, it's in here in two places because I put it out there and so did Michelle. I'll put it again.
Oh, where it says Michelle Carr, if you represent an organization, that one?
Yep. Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Right there.
Yeah.
And
And then
so,
I looked at 1123, the one about limiting the governor's emergency, his powers during an emergency, and Ryan did co-sponsor that.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
And so did about
He
every.
sent out a survey. Go ahead.
So did all the other Republicans. I mean, it has like 40. Oh, it's just a trip. Just a huge
Yeah.
number of people that sponsored this thing, like limit his powers. Well, I'd like to limit their powers, but
but if
they're
you,
great at limiting other people's powers.
you guys could copy that and save it and then just send those emails out and let Julie know that you did it. She said she would sleep good. Like it would just bother her if it doesn't take place. So she would want you to do that. And then we are, this is following up on an idea that Sharon Craig had. We originally talked about having a similar thing to Third House because, they weren't having third houses. And so we thought we'd invite legislators and stuff. They told us to get lost. So then we thought, well, maybe we could invite other people and start having these meetings, not necessarily monthly, but have them so our people that like to show up, they could come and learn something and went to work the next time when they get off their COVID absence. They could stand next to the water cooler and intelligently talk about various issues. And we thought this would be great. So Sharon's responsible for us starting these things, and we appreciate Julie Lowe coming and Julia Bond coming last time. We'll have more of these meetings in the future, and you're all welcome to come back and participate.
Well, it's been fun and informative. So thank you all.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.